Good morning, everybody. Kelly here with today's Hip Tips. And today on episode 69, we're going to be talking about making coffee. Whether you like coffee or not, coffee is a staple in many people's mornings. It's the smell, it tastes good, it's comforting. People need the caffeine for their energy. And lots of people go get coffee in the morning, whether it's at a local coffee shop, they brew it themselves, or somebody else brews it for them in the office. So I'm going to give you a few steps and tips on how to brew coffee. And if you don't drink coffee, that's a-okay. You may end up with a job in an office position where you make coffee. It's your responsibility to brew it and make sure that the coffee pot is never empty. So let's begin by just talking about the different parts of a coffee machine. Now, mine looks different than a lot of different people's, but there's 1,000,005 different coffee pots, machines out there. So just get to know the coffee machine that you're going to be using. Get to know how much water it can take, what kind of coffee you use, how it's brewed, how to clean it out, because that's an important part of brewing coffee. And just get to know it before you use it. So my coffee machine is a hybrid type thing. It's a little bit of a Keurig and a coffee pot at the same time. And by that I mean it has a water vat on the side instead of an actual pot that goes down at the bottom. And but it doesn't use pods like a Keurig does. It uses grounds. So either way, whatever machine you have, make sure that you remember that you're cooking something. You are making coffee, and coffee is incredibly hot. So what I like to do is, the first thing you need to remember is taking out old grounds and emptying out the old coffee. Now, a lot of people have the pot that hangs out right here. That needs to be cleaned out. I like to use hot soap and water because then it takes off the leftover coffee remnants from the day before or what have you. But you don't need to do that between every single brew. Just, I rinse it out, add more water, and then I'm done. But at the end of the day, make sure it gets cleaned out thoroughly. Soap, water, all of that. Handles and buttons, especially in the time that we're living right now, handles and buttons need to be cleaned off very well because different people grab the pot, push the buttons, all that stuff. So cleanliness is important. Now, I'm going to start from having a dirty pot so you can see what that process looks like. Now, I just brewed coffee, so this is really, really hot. And what I'm going to do is this one, I pull out completely. Instead of the pot, again, it's a vat. So it just keeps going and going and going. And what I'm going to do is separate the filter, and excuse my dirty dishes, by the way. I'm going to remove this filter area and put it aside. And then I'm going to empty out this vat. Again, it's hot. You may have to do this if for some reason coffee doesn't brew correctly. There's a bunch of grounds in the bottom, which I'll tell you how to prevent that. And I'm just going to rinse it out like so. I'm not going to submerge it. I'm just going to rinse it. Again, at the end of your shift, I would throw some soap in there. Make sure you clean it really well. This is hard to do with one hand, so... Okay, now that's empty, and I'm going to go put it back in the coffee machine, like that. Now, with filters, no matter where you're at, make sure that the old coffee grounds go in the trash or in a compost area. Never put them down the disposal in the sink because they don't ground up. They end up stacking up at the bottom of the disposal, and they get really, really gross and clog up everything, and then you have to go clean it out and all that stuff. I'm speaking from experience, so just so you know. Lots of grounds went everywhere and it was gross. Now, once you have cleaned, rinsed out this filter holder, you take filters. The purpose of these is to prevent grounds from getting into the coffee itself. So it's really important when you have a filter that, one, you have the right size, because they do come in different sizes, and two, it's completely in the filter holder. If it's to the side like this, grounds will seep out through the side and end up going through that little hole where the coffee actually goes through. So this is a protection from drinking all the beans. Make sure that that is just like that. And it's okay if it's wet. It's going to get wet. It just needs to be in there solid. Now, the next part is your water. Different machines are going to call for different types of, not types of water, but different amounts of water. So, like I said at the beginning, get to know your coffee machine. There are industrial pots that know exactly how much to fill it up. It'll say just put in 1 package of coffee or 2 packages of coffee. Others require you to take the bag and open it up yourself and scoop it in. So just really get to know your machine. Of course, everybody has their own preference. Just a little tip, coffee is, or just a little hint of information, coffee can come in different types of brews. So there's light, there's medium, there's dark. There is decaf, which is very low in caffeine, although it still has a tiny, tiny bit. So there's just different types of brews. And the light brews are going to be light brown color. The darks are going to be, of course, a dark brown. You may not be able to see through them like you can a light brew. There's all different kinds of brands out there that you can use. There's the store-bought, like the store stuff. There's Starbucks. I like trying different flavors, but I'm just a Folgers girl. But this is coconut and turmeric. It's light ground. The coffee bag will tell you what type of brew it is. So this is light. It's ground, which is important to know because if you get a bag like this, it can either come in the ground, which is the fine powder looking, or it comes in whole beans. And we don't put whole beans in the coffee pot. You got to ground them up first and then put them in the filter. So all that to say, I'm going to take my water vat and I'm just going to show you. There are numbers on the side, and the numbers tell you how much coffee that you are brewing. And because it's just me drinking coffee right now, I'm only going to fill it up to 6 cups. If you have a hard time holding the coffee pot or pulling these things out, take a cup that you can hold, fill it with water, and pour it in. It takes a little bit longer, but it works just the same. Just find a way to fill that up so that you don't have to worry about spilling it or dropping it or anything like that. I typically do 6 cups because at some point I'm only going to drink 2. I end up running into things and spilling it all over myself. I leave it somewhere and I forget where it is. So if I fill it up to 6 cups, then I at least know I'm going to get 2 of those cups to drink. All right. So once I'm done filling the vat up of water, I'm going to turn you around again. I'm sorry for the loud noises. This is incredibly hard to do with one hand, but I'm trying. So I got my water filled up in the pot. And you can see where the water line is. It's exactly 6 cups. And I am going to take my coffee, and notice that there are 2 white clips on the side. These are very important to make sure that the coffee stays fresh. So when you're at home and you are trying to get coffee out, one tip that I like to do is I like to kind of hit the bag on the counter a little bit like this, so that any grounds that might be up here can settle down. And when I open it, grounds don't fall out everywhere. Now, that's not to say that they won't. It just helps a little bit. Let me do it again right here. And voila. You can read the side of the packaging. This one says 2 tablespoons for every 6 ounces. Everybody has their own way of making coffee, but I take a heaping spoon like this, and I like to scoop it out and put it in the coffee filter. And that is how I do it. So I'm just going to keep going. I have a level on the filter that I look at. I eyeball it, but if you are new to it, again, follow the instructions. These are heaping. It's going to make my coffee a little darker, because that's how I like it. And if you notice, the coffee is completely inside my filter. And now the water is going to come out of here when I press the button. So just a quick little run through on how this works. You put the water in the vat, and when you close the lid and you hit brew or on, the water is pulled from the water vat and heated up in the back through a tube. It pours out into the filter with the coffee beans, and the coffee steeps. The hot water sits on top of those beans, or the grounds, not beans, the grounds that we had in the filter, and then it filters through so that we can drink it. For a regular coffee pot that has a pot, the same process happens, but instead of putting your water in like this, you take the water from the pot, you fill up the pot to the level you need it, and you pour it in the side or the back. So you actually use the pot that takes the fresh coffee, and you fill that up with water, put it in the back, and then it fills up. So that might sound really confusing, but it just basically, this has a place for water, a place for coffee, where some just have a place for water and coffee. So just pay attention to what you're using. Now this is brewing. This is gonna get super hot. I don't know why I just put my finger there. That was really silly. These are the air vents. This is where steam is gonna come out of. I know that my coffee is brewing by the sound, the smell, and the steam that comes out. So it's very much a sensory experience. If you have a pot, make sure that it's aligned. If it's not aligned and you brew the coffee, the coffee will go everywhere. I am speaking from experience again. I do the hip tips so that I can make all the mistakes, and then I can tell you not to do that. So now that my coffee is brewing, I'm just going to let it finish. My coffee pot, as well as many others, beep whenever they're done brewing. When you hear that beep, that means that it's ready to go. You can fill it up, or you can fill up your coffee mug. You can drink your coffee. If you are working in an office setting, that signal is, okay, your coffee's done. Pull the vat out, put it where it needs to go. A lot of times when you brew, instead of having a little vat or a little pot, it's in a big silver tube, and you just pull the handle, you move it to where it goes, and then you monitor it, because coffee's gonna run out and it's not gonna brew itself. So just keep in mind that this is a rotational type task. You can brew some coffee, set it out, and then remember to come back and check it in about 15-20 minutes, because it more than likely will be empty, especially if you work in very early hours of the morning. So that is the coffee pot. Can you hear it brewing? It makes a little bit of a grumbling noise, almost like a sound my stomach makes when I'm hungry. The last tip is just to make sure that you close your coffee back up when you're finished. And again, I'm learning how to use one hand very well. You want to get as much air out of it as possible, and that these little clips on the side are pinching it so that we can keep as much air out as possible. And then it's ready to go for the next time you use the coffee. All right, you guys, I'm going to go enjoy my coffee. I hope that everybody has a great day. If you have any tips or any experience using a coffee pot, let me know. Do you like to drink coffee? What do you put in your coffee? Do you drink it black with sugar, creamer, all that? I love to know. So tell me below and I'll talk to you later. Mmm.